Whoop, little bounce off the ground, impact detected, but it's still going.
Hey everybody, you're watching Ready Set Drone, and today we're gonna show you how to set up the DJI NEO in manual mode, and then we're gonna take it out and fly it in manual mode, so stay tuned. All right, so first of all, if you're not familiar with the DJI NEO, we do have a full review of it that shows you all the things it can do. But for those of you who are familiar with it and know that it's a selfie drone, it's also a little FPV quad. It's a Cinewhoop style FPV quad that allows you to get really cool video because it has electronic image stabilization and a pretty decent camera. Where you have a lot of fun with this thing is flying it in FPV with the goggles. And if you really want to get crazy, you fly it in manual mode, hit a lot of gaps, and do some flips and rolls and stuff like that. So to get into manual mode, the first thing you need to do is make sure it's bound with the goggles, make sure it's bound with the DJI FPV RC3, which is right here. So I'm gonna put on the goggles. And just so you know, I have the goggles connected to my phone because I'm screen recording right now so you can see what I'm doing in the goggles. So I'll put the goggles on. And the first thing I will do is go into the settings by pressing the joystick down and finding the settings over here on the left menu. I will push the button on the joystick down, go to control, and then in control, I'll go to remote controller. And under remote controller, there's two things you have to do. First of all, you have to come down here under button customization to custom mode and switch this from sport mode, which is its default setting, to manual mode, and then hit confirm. And what that does is that gives you the ability to switch between normal, sport, and manual with this switch right here. Normally, if you haven't made that change, then when you switch it down to the bottom, it's still in sport mode. So if you're having that problem, switch that setting under remote controller and button customization. And then in order to be able to do flips and rolls, you have to go into remote controller, go over to gain and expo, and then go down to this M mode attitude limit. M mode attitude limit limits the attitude. Attitude is how much it will pitch or roll. And if it's on, it won't flip over. It'll only go so far before it stops. And if you turn it off, then you can flip over and do all kinds of crazy stuff. So I just turned it off, and that's gonna give me the ability to make the thing flip and roll and do power loops and all that kind of thing that you couldn't do if that was still on. So those are the two steps. And once you've done those things, you can switch right here using this switch between normal, sport, and manual. And in manual, you don't pull the sticks down and in to fire up the motors. You double click this button right here, the motors will start, and then you can take off. And just be careful if you're indoors, because manual mode tends to be a little wild, especially indoors. But you can see, I am zipping around in manual. Yeah, like I said, it can get a little fast on you if you're not careful. But you can do things like hit gaps that you might not be able to do very easily in normal mode. And then if you get in trouble, flip it to normal mode. And then you can come over and land gently. Sit up straight. Also, one quick note about that. I tend to like to take off in manual mode and not try to take off in normal mode and switch to manual mode, because doing that is actually kind of tricky and it's a little disconcerting when you switch from normal to manual, because all of a sudden it wants to kind of get out of control for a moment. So I suggest you take off in manual mode but land in normal mode, because that's the easiest. Now let's go out to the field and see how it does in manual mode with some trees and something to chase.
Okay, so even though we enabled manual mode in the studio, for some reason on the NEO, it doesn't always stick. It won't always let you go into manual mode right away. So you might have to go back into your goggles. And so once you do that, the ability to do flips and stuff should still be there. And switch down. Yep, I'm in manual mode. And remember, in manual mode, you don't do the sticks down and in. You double tap this switch and the motors will start. And once you do that, you can take off. And yeah, I got hit by a little wind right out of the gate there. And I really think that the NEO, its superpower is its ability to do these gaps. and just kind of hit through all these trees like we're doing right now. If you want to be able to fly something like in a park and just be able to go through gaps and have fun like I'm doing right now, that's kind of what the Neo is great at. It is getting pushed around a bit by the wind, so my confidence in some of those smaller gaps is not super high, but I will try, see if there's any water in there. I don't see any. All right, I will try this. Oh, got it. Nice. There's Chris's one wheel, which we're gonna chase in just a minute. But yeah, I mean, you can see it's very responsive and it is very small, so getting through the gaps is pretty easy. And then you can do a flip like that. That wasn't a very good one, but it was okay. And you can certainly do a roll like that. And you know, if you need to, you can also set your rates a little faster or a little slower if you don't like rolling that fast. Now right now, I've got the camera set at 1080 60, and that is kind of helping me have a smooth flight experience in FPV. Whoop, little bounce off the ground, impact detected, but it's still going. Interesting, it says impact detected in the goggles, gimbal motor overloaded. All right, now that's disappeared. And yeah, maybe I should come over here and just land it real quick and make sure we're okay. So I just had impact with the ground, and obviously if you hit the ground and there's some grass or something, you could very well kind of knock the gimbal up. It said gimbal motor overloaded, so I landed, I've turned it off, I'm gonna turn it back on and see if it's okay now. I think it will be. I don't think it damaged anything, I think it just freaked it out for a minute. And then I'm curious to see if I can still switch into manual. Yes, I still can. And okay, my tilt on my gimbal is working, so that's good. So I'll take it up one more time. Motor starting. You know, I'll say one more thing too about the Neo. I have found there is a bit of a wind blowing right now, but I have found that it tends to kind of go backwards a little bit when it takes off. And I don't know if that's because of the selfie thing where it's trying to go backwards away from the person if it's launching out of your hand. But I'm gonna try that again and try to compensate for it this time, not let it go backwards. So here we go. So I purposely pushed it forwards a little bit that time when I took off. I'm definitely a big fan of the fact that this can fly in such small, tight spaces and hit such tight gaps. Definitely feeling some wind and getting a little bit of signal degradation on the video. You gotta give it quite a bit of throttle sometimes to, wow, okay. It just nosedived for no obvious reason that time. So there was one point at which I was chasing Chris. I had actually gotten ahead of him a little bit, and I felt like the quad was losing power. I was giving it more and more throttle, and it was just going down and down, and eventually I crashed. I'm not exactly sure what happened to that situation, but as soon as he picked it back up, set it back down on the sidewalk, and I took off again, it was fine. So don't know what was going on there.
So as you can see, the DJI NEO is a pretty good FPV manual mode flyer if it's not too windy. Now it is pretty susceptible to wind because it's small, it's very lightweight, and the wind pushes it around a little bit. But when you account for that, even if there is a bit of wind and you get pretty good at it, it's no problem. You can hit lots of gaps going through trees. You can chase things pretty easily. You can dive with it, but the dives are not gonna be great. It's not gonna have the same power that a regular freestyle quad is gonna have. Even a 4S freestyle quad, and especially a 6S freestyle quad, is gonna feel quite a bit different because this one is a little laggy and you have to give it some juice. And there are a few little buggy things about it when it comes to flying manual. I did notice one time when I was flying it pretty fast, I had to get the throttle almost all the way to the top to keep going. So I would be careful flying it over water or anything like that if you're trying to do FPV and you're really going at it. But generally, as a way to learn to fly manual mode, it's a great little quad because it's lightweight, it's not gonna hurt anybody, it is sub 250, and so you're gonna have a lot of leeway when it comes to flying it through small gaps. It is very small, and it is very precise when you get used to flying it in manual mode. I'll be honest, if this had not had manual mode and it was just a selfie drone with normal mode and a normal controller, I wouldn't be nearly as excited about it. But the fact that you can use it as a selfie drone and put it on your hand and do all these shots, you know, the helix and the circle and the droney and the rocket and all those, and then you can also bind it with a regular FPV controller and the goggles and have some fun learning to fly in manual mode, makes it a winner for me, and the price you can't beat. I'd say you should get two, just in case you put one in the drink. If you found this video interesting, I hope you'll comment below and let us know what you think about the DJI NEO, especially when you're flying it in manual mode. If you have questions, be sure to ask in the comments below. We'll try to answer them, and we hope to see you next time on Ready, Set, Drone.